Tarik Talk. Your host, Tarik Mendez, takes you on a journey with guests from all around the world. Broadcasting around the world. Around the world. This is Tarik Talk.
Hey guys, today we have Mindy Gluck here on my podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Mindy. How are you today?
My pleasure. I'm great.
Good. Mindy's a fellow artist. We're like neighbors at R150. We both have art studios there. So let's start off by, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, Mindy?
Let's see. I've lived in Jersey City for 17 years when it was still, run down, which, as an artist, that's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Run down neighborhoods, large, inexpensive spaces, warehouse. So, and then Art 150 opened right, I could fall out of bed and I'm there.
Oh, wow.
So it's very fortunate for me. And what else? I guess I've been an artist all my life, and I'm having a extremely very productive time right now. I'm an abstract artist, and I started out as a painter, and then during COVID, I started doing photography, abstract photography, and then I started collaging some of the photographs. And but I am getting back to painting, and it's the best fun. I love creating visual imagery, and it's an obsession at this point in my life. It's such an obsession. That's like my favorite word in describing what I do, because I just get such a charge out of it, and it's so satisfying to me. And I brought one of my new collages, and I brought this today because I don't feel like words can describe an experience, a visual experience.
Yes.
And so for me, just looking at this piece gives you insight into what I mean, I hope, by a visual experience, because not only is it the photograph, and it's a bit collaged photograph, and but it's also the shape and the way it sits on the backing, and for me, it just does it. It floats my boat.
I love that.
Thank you.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about your creation process, and then we can bounce back to the picture?
Sure. Well, I photograph with my iPhone. I have an iPhone 12, and it's an amazing camera. And I have a puppy, and I walk the puppy 4 times a day, and but my eye is always seeking that charge, that obsession, that what do I want to capture and use. And I say capture because it's different from a painting where I'm creating from scratch something, but it's just another way of creating for me. And and then what I do with it after I print it, because my way of operating is I'll take a photograph and then I won't even check it out. It's just in my coterie of photographs, and then like a day or a week later I will look through the photographs, and like something will grab me, and somehow that time separation from getting the image to seeing it again and doing something with it, I like that time lapse. It's almost like I do that with my painting also. I started painting again, and I won't look at it for quite a few days, and then I go back and it just tells me, it leads me what needs to be done. And I love that, because I don't have to get frustrated. Oh, what do I do now? I'm stuck. No, that doesn't happen anymore because I know all I have to do is get some space from it and see it with a fresh eye. And it's the most fun, the most satisfying thing in my life, and I just want to keep on keeping on.
Yes, please don't stop. And I have a question. You mentioned your walks that you take with your dog. When you do that, are you actively trying to find inspiration, or do you let like inspiration find you? Because you mentioned you like to photograph during your walks.
Well, my eye is always, it's not like I'm looking.
It just comes naturally.
But I will look at like the most things that other people don't seem to look at. Like even in Art 150, the building downstairs, there's this club restaurant that used to exist there. And part of the window has this black sticky stuff on it where it's peeling. And I've taken pictures of that because, like at night and the reflected light and, it's just whatever catches my eye. It's not like I'm looking. It's somehow I connect with imagery and, it's a charge. It always happens for me, and I do love reflection. I did a lot of reflections in car windshields because I like the way the image is warped, and I love mirrored buildings, reflections, and it seems to me like I take pictures of things that exist that everybody sees every day. But I see something in these. I see the imagery that I want to capture.
And that's why I always loved your work. That's why I wanted you to be on the podcast, because I think you find beauty where people just overlook it or don't see it or don't have the eye for it. On your Instagram, I saw there's a lot of pictures that you take and you kind of warp them. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that process?
Well, do I warp them?
Like you take pictures like the reflection of the buildings and you kind of like combine them in a way where it creates like a cool pattern.
Well, that's, I don't know that I don't manipulate it with technology.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like I will manipulate it by cropping or by creating, making it lighter or darker.
Yes.
That's the way I manipulate the image. So, and by doing that, by focusing in on what my eye is seeing that I like, then it's transformed into an abstract image that, I feel satisfied with.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. I love, what like really got me curious about your work was when we first met, when I moved to the art studio. I believe I curated the show last May, and you had 3 images of 3 pictures that we used for the gallery show, and I really loved how your work, like I kind of knew what building it was, but it made me like interact with the photograph, like, oh, like I've seen this building before. How did she take this picture? What angle? What time of the day? The thing I like about your work is not only, like I said, you find beauty where most people don't see, but you have such a good angle of like a good eye that you take such good angle pictures that, like one of my favorite pictures you took was by Exchange Place, where there's like a building and the reflection of another building in the sky. And I just love that because I thought, wow, like that's something I probably like see, but I don't really pay attention to it. It just like goes into my subconscious. But the fact that you're able to like highlight such an interesting concept, I find that very, very beautiful that you're able to do that. Yeah.
I'm really drawn to it, and I guess it's like an addiction, really, because it happens, unconsciously, and it's just I enjoy it, and it's such a charge, and and I hope the thing with my work is I always want to be challenged. I don't want it ever to be, oh, let's, I don't have a formula.
Yeah.
I work very intuitively, and, I relate that to something about my life, my personal life, without getting too personal, that, the idea that I have to overcome fear and just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And, the prize is always great. I'm never disappointed when I don't let fear overtake me, because I think fear is something that most people in one aspect of their life or another have to deal with. Anyone who doesn't have fear, I envy them, because, it's something to overcome. But, overcoming obstacles in your life, the rewards are great,
Mm-hmm.
and you gain a lot by having to do that,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful for all of it.
That's amazing. And I have a question. Do you, after getting an art studio, do you think that helped your work and your process?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it designates a space
Mm-hmm.
that, is for one thing.
Okay.
And, where I live is really, it's in a warehouse right across the street, but it's not really large enough to live and work.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was doing that for a while, and I just so love having the studio and having the community of Art 150. It's really enriching, and I guess the next step for me is, the most important thing is the creative process, but I do want to get my work out more.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be concentrating on in the near future.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And also, like when your creative process, when you get into the studio, because it's always very fascinating to speak to every artist I get to talk to. Like when you get to your studio, or do you normally like start working right away, or do you kind of hang out and let inspiration like hit you in a little bit, or like what's your process?
Well, somehow the process starts when I buy a canvas to use, and it's sitting there, and for some reason I'm choosing squares, and I have 2 medium-sized square canvases and 2 larger-sized canvases, and I'll probably keep progressing larger and larger, and as I said, I work intuitively, so I don't have a plan, I don't have a vision of what I'm going to do, and I just trust in just action, starting somewhere, getting paint on the canvas, and then I'll leave it and come back to it and see, although I do photograph a lot of each stage of the work. Because that's informative for me. But then it's, you come back to it, and that's when you really start a dialogue with the imagery, and, in each step of the way, it becomes a discovery, because I don't plan, it's intuitive, and, it's a trip. It's a trip, and you don't know where the journey is going to end or what it's going to look like. And I find that a very exciting way to work.
Oh, that's really cool.
Because I'm surprised.
Yeah. So you like to be spontaneous and just go with the process and just trust the process, right?
Yes. And for me, that's very exciting, and gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, when you're, as you mentioned, you as you're working in your series, do you photograph each stage?
When I'm painting, yes.
Yeah. And do
Yeah.
you use like, do those photographs end up becoming like artwork pieces?
No,
Or
that
is it
hasn't
just like-
happened. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But you mean like the paintings? That those
Yeah, like the
photographs?
process can end up becoming like a piece of art itself.
It could. That's a great
It's
idea.
really cool, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
I
that's
like
really nice.
that.
And then also, like what, in regards to inspiration, do you keep, like as you mentioned, you photograph a lot. Do you keep like any sketchbooks, or do you write down your ideas, or do you let them like incubate in your mind?
Yes, I do keep a sketchbook, and for example, I wanted to start a series of self-portraits, but for me, a self-portrait is not sitting and painting my face, although, I might do that too. So I had this idea that I would paint a painting of DNA
Oh wow.
as the imagery. And so I looked it up, on Google, images of DNA, and I did a series of sketches. And from the sketches, the sketches were not like, trying to do an exact copy.
Yeah.
And from those sketches, I did a painting that I'm really happy with, and I'm not sure where that's going to go. I thought, it might be interesting to do the same with, the neurons in the brain. But after looking, Googling images of a lot of artists to, do that kind of imagery, and I really don't want to, I want to do something original. I don't want to do something that's
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you go from like, because your photographs have a lot of architecture and everything's very symmetrical or asymmetrical. How did you transfer from that into what you're doing now, the DNA? Like, what was your inspiration behind that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I'm just, as I say, it's all instinctual, and maybe I'd be better off if I was like focused on one thing, but I feel like I can do it all, and I don't have to put any parameters on what I'm doing. I'm not reliant on paying my rent, by selling work.
Yeah.
So not having that pressure is very freeing, and as an artist, I'm grateful that, that's the case, because I wouldn't, maybe, there are good and bad things to everything, and, I'm sure, having to sell your work would push you more towards getting your work out.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I'm not that great at, and I do want to start focusing on, having more shows and making more contacts. That's not my strong point, but it's important to me because, I love when I show people my work and see their reactions to it. So it's a charge, and so I would like to have that more in my life. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you think that, because you say like your process is very organic and you're very spontaneous, do you think that for you inspiration comes easily because you're not so much trying to look for something or the next big thing? You're just more like intuitive?
Absolutely, because I'm never disappointed. Things always come to me.
That's really cool.
I'm never like, grasping in the darkness, because, I guess there's, a lot of things that I'm interested in. I do a lot of reading. I love science. I love, learning about the universe, and all these things I think contribute to, what I'm open to expressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. That's really cool. I'm so glad you're here because you're one of my favorite artists and people.
Oh, you're
and you're
so
always
nice.
the sweetest
Thank
and the most
you.
talented. And how, like, as I always like to ask all the guests here that are artists, when you're creating, do you prefer to create like in the nighttime or the daytime? Are you like a night owl when it comes to work?
Well, that's a good question because actually I started like showing up to my studio in the early morning,
Mm-hmm.
then late at night. I'm like all over the board.
And say you live close by, so that works out perfectly.
I live
so
across the
when
street.
inspiration comes, yeah,
It's great.
you're right there.
Yeah, big deal to just hop over to the
Yeah.
studio. It's really good to be able to go there any time of the day or
Oh,
night.
that's amazing.
And it's a 24-hour. It's
Yeah.
open,
So it's like the best. Yeah, you're not
It's great.
restricted. Yeah.
It's great.
And I know you're from Brooklyn because we previously talked, and I see a lot of like big city buildings in your photograph. Do you think like being from Brooklyn and growing up in the city that has like inspired your work and influenced your work today?
I never thought about that, but I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool because I think, as I mentioned, like you have such an eye for reflection and certain things that most people don't. And I thought, maybe I figured like it's, being an immigrant coming later when I was a kid to New York, I thought it's something you either didn't have and you appreciate, or because you grew up around it, it becomes like your subconscious. So you're so familiar with it. It's almost like an extension of your body. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's really true.
Yeah.
And, as far as like having images warped and transformed, what I love about photographing in New York City is, you photograph a skyscraper and the image is naturally warped because it's, just so tall.
Yeah.
And, it's like wide angle. And so I do want to I want to do more photography in the city because whenever I'm in there, I always snap a photo and, and feel like, oh, I got to get in here more just for taking images because, around Jersey City, I'm always walking around, so it's easy. But I am going to start making a point of going into the city just to photograph.
Yeah. And it's so close by, I'm sure.
Yes.
We could probably even go together one day. Who knows, right?
That would
be cool.
Very good. Yeah.
And then when you start on a new piece of work, and let's say like your new artwork isn't going as planned, are you the type of artist that like stops what you're doing, or do you kind of leave it to the side and plan to go back to it? Like, what's your process like?
I like to have more than one thing started at once. I find that it's great to, go from piece to piece.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really like, as I was saying earlier, getting space if I'm not feeling like the flow.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck. I don't want to pressure myself or do something that's going to destroy the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I will, just to share with you, I'm doing this painting now that I really like. It was just black and white. And I started, and it got to a point where I didn't want to ruin it. So I started actually tearing this blue tape.
Oh, wow.
And creating with this blue tape that I thought I would go back and paint.
Mm-hmm.
I would unpeel it and paint the shapes. And it turned into something really exciting, and I'm really happy with where it's going. And as long as it's fun and exciting and it keeps moving and surprising me, which it is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm allowing it to be what it wants to become.
Absolutely. I love that.
And I think I try to do that with all my work, even, the photography, the collage. It's like, it just ends up, feeling right and exciting and beautiful to my eye. So That's how I know I'm done.
I love that. I love that. And going back to Miss Lily, your cute little dog, do you
Yeah.
think having her kind of helped you get out there, and then which allows you to like photograph buildings in a way, and then become part of your
For
work?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, that all happened during COVID.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, right in front of my building is a construction site, and, you know, I take a lot of pictures of
Oh, wow.
construction sites around the city. And, yeah, so it's always a walk with Lily and an opportunity to, you know, capture more photographs, more images.
That's amazing. And do you ever have a period in your artistic career that you had like some sort of like writer's block?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But that was, you know,
And how were you able to like overcome that? Because that's like a question a lot of people ask me to ask future guests. Like, how do you? Because maybe they might be like dealing with that right now, and they
Yeah.
want to know like what's your advice or something that worked for you.
yes, going for a walk or exploring places that I haven't been before in the city.
Would you mind sharing with us like who your influences are? Like who are you inspired by? Like, are you inspired by music or by art?
Okay, I'm inspired by science and the universe and art, photography, any type of art, because it's coming from someone's heart and mind and vision, and I find that very beautiful. What else? Yeah, cinema, love cinema.
When you're creating, do you listen to like music or
Yes,
any form of like artistic form?
I
Stuff that you're doing?
love music.
Yeah. Do you think that helps with your process when
Yes,
you're creating?
absolutely.
Yeah. And do you do like just random music, or do you try to like match your mood to that day with the music you're listening to?
I think it's unconscious.
Okay.
You know, I'll just pick something out of my queue and listen to something that, you know, I have soundtracks to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I love music, absolutely. And you know, it's always inspiring going to museums and seeing other artists' work
Definitely.
and galleries, and also just the artists at Art 150. I love seeing what they're doing. You know, it all feeds you, and
We're all connected and we're all inspired by each other, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
And also, do you, when you're creating, like you're listening to music, are you able to, like once you start, are you able to like stop and continue later on, or a few hours later, or are you the type like once you start your project and you're like the piece you're working on, you have to continue until you finish it?
Oh, I just, you know, I would say both. So it depends on, you know, it depends on the session, the creative session. You know, sometimes if I'm stuck, I might leave. Sometimes if I'm stuck, I might push through,
Okay.
and that I started doing recently. That, you know, okay, I don't know what to do at this point. And that somehow I dig deep and find the courage to just keep going, and I'm very thrilled by the results. So, you know, it's different each time, and you know, as I said, I live right across the street, so I can leave and then I can come back. So,
Do you think that helps a lot, like that quick access and direct access to your studio?
yes,
It doesn't limit you?
absolutely. There's no travel involved. You
Yeah.
know? So, it's wonderful, and the fact that, it's a 24-hour access. It's really
It's really
great.
amazing, right?
Yeah. This one painting that, as I said, I started adding tape, blue tape,
The blue tape, yeah.
to this black and white painting. And I'm just really excited about where it's going because, the mark making, it's odd.
Yeah.
The images that are collected, even for me, is so odd, and I like that so much. Where do I come up with this stuff?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't tell you. But it's abstract, and there's no rules, and nobody's looking over my shoulder, and I can do what I want. And that, attitude of freedom, you don't always come into the studio and feel that way, but I feel like I'm in a really good place right now where I can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
There are no mistakes. And it's very freeing to have that attitude as an artist, because you could be your own worst enemy and just freeze, So I'm happy with what I'm doing right now.
And I have I just want to know, because when I first met you, you were doing photographs, and now you're doing paintings. Did you always do photographs, or did you start with paintings, or you just?
I started as a painter.
Painter, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to photographs during COVID.
Yeah.
And now you're going back to painting.
Yeah, but I'm not going to stop the photography.
Okay. And while you're doing the photography, did you do a little paintings in between, or just fully focused on photographing?
Well, it has been in the past. I focused on the photographs, and I didn't do any painting. But which is why I'm really happy right now that I am also painting. But it seems like I've stopped doing photographs, although, I collect, and I have my own printer, so I print a lot of the photographs at home, even if I'm not taking the photographs. And then I might collage and make pieces that way.
Oh, wow.
So I'm always, working either with the photographs. Oh, I am working with collage photographs right now and painting.
Oh, wow. So do you feel like sometimes if an idea doesn't work out for a photograph or a collage, you're able to transfer that into a painting, or vice versa? Like they kind of like help each other out?
Well, that would be very cool, but I can't say that happens. Yeah, maybe unconsciously it does, because we're one organism, and whatever we're experiencing comes through. But consciously, I can't say that I do that. Yeah.
And you mentioned your interest in science. Is that how you came up with the idea for the DNA series you're doing with the neurons that you're painting?
Yeah. Well, through reading, I read a lot, and as you read, you make mental pictures, and so I don't know. It's somehow recreating DNA. I feel like everybody knows what that looks like, or most people know. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go full steam ahead in that direction, because it's almost like painting outer space. It's like it's common imagery that anyone can access. So I think it sort of deletes originality, where my abstract painting is totally, I feel like it's totally original, and I'm doing something that maybe nobody else is doing, or I don't know. But you paint DNA, and everybody knows what that is, and it loses some of its originality because it's so known.
Yeah.
But it's something I'll probably continue a little bit and see where it goes.
And I wanted to know. I have a lot of people since I started the podcast that reach out with questions to ask my guest, and this is one of them. What's like an advice you would give to like young artists that they feel that they're artists themselves, but they don't know how to start and they don't know where to go? Like, what advice would you give them?
I would say don't overthink, because that constipates the creative process. Just
I love that. That constipates the creative process. You should trademark that. I love that.
Yeah, just once again, it's about overcoming fear, and you just start doing without thinking about it. And how do you start? Well, you go to Blick Art and you buy materials. If you have the materials there ready to use, then whenever you're ready, you can get busy.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you. And another fun question, is what that I like to ask. If you could give your younger self, an artistic advice, like if you go back like to 20-year-old Mindy, artistically, what would you tell her?
That's a tough one. Have faith. Get over yourself. Have faith, because your identity is so much involved with being an artist. And I would say don't overthink, because that's your biggest obstacle. Get out of your own head. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
I do want to talk about what is so good about being at this point in my life, because I am trusting more and more into intuition.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I just love the results I'm getting by being intuitive and sort of, allowing myself to just feel free enough, and that there's nothing to lose by taking chances, and it's so rewarding, and it's so fun, and you're not risking anything. It's just paint on canvas. You can go over it. You can start a new canvas. So I'm just very grateful to reach this point in my life where, I'm not so worried or self-conscious about, every little thing that I do. It's very freeing, and trusting in your intuition is like just a key. It's a key that opens up any possibility.
Do you think once you achieve this state, you're able to just like trust the process and your work has become more organic? You just kind of go with the flow, and then the end product is amazing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know what? I only have one person to please, myself.
That is true, yes. That's the best way to be.
That's probably the hardest person to please, but because, artists, I'm sure, have like high standards for what they think is a successful artwork. But, it's a good place I'm in.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And going back to that show where we worked together, the group show, I remember seeing like different people interact with your work, trying to figure out this and that, like where the location you were in, like what building this was. Do you like hearing people's feedback and their perspective about your work, or?
Oh, absolutely, because it's informative, the good and the bad. Of course, I prefer the good, but, I really value people's response to my work, because, otherwise it's, you living in a what? I don't know what the word is. You're living in a closet,
Yeah, in a bubble, basically.
In a bubble,
yeah.
yes. So it's it's other people's perceptions, and what could be more valuable to an artist than hearing, what somebody thinks.
That's amazing.
Unless you're just not in a state of mind where, do you have a thick skin at that moment? Do you have a thin skin?
But I think there's a difference between like a good criticism and then like a bad criticism versus a constructive criticism.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely, because what is the person's intention? Is it to like shoot you down?
Yeah.
That's just
that's like
ugly.
Worthless in a way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
worthless.
Right.
Right.
But when they tell you, I love when people tell me like constructive criticism, like, "Oh, this is good, but you ever think about trying this way or that way?"
Yes.
And it makes you go like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." Do you enjoy that?
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful, because it didn't occur to you to try that. Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself when you're working to have those moments naturally with yourself, like maybe you've done something for many years or many days in a certain way, and then you quite like suddenly out of nowhere, you're like you question yourself, like, "Oh my gosh, what if I do this or turn this upside down or try this material?"
It's a great gift.
And it's a great feeling, right?
Yes, absolutely, because it's going to open a door for you to try something you didn't do previously. Yeah,
I love
for
that.
Sure.
That's really good. And does Miss Lily, your dog, ever like end up on your work in any way, like subconsciously or consciously? Because you mentioned she sometimes goes and keeps you company while you're creating.
Well, she's part of my life, like a really big part of my life. So, I adore her, and she knows my sane moments and my insane moments. Like when you live with anyone, but she's totally forgiving, and she's totally loving, and I adore her, and I feel blessed to have her.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure she could say the same thing about you if she could talk, no? She's the cutest.
So
and I love how tiny and fluffy she is.
Yeah. Well, and she's like going to be 13 in April.
Oh, wow.
And she's healthy.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's good.
That's very good. I wanted to know, because a lot of people that I interview here, they always tell me that they had like an artistic spirit from an early age. Do you see yourself like that? Like as far as you can remember being a kid, did you always find yourself drawing or being artistic in any kind of way?
I am not sure. I don't remember. I had other things that I had to get past.
Yeah.
I mean, my relationship with my mother was not great. Even though now that she's dead, my relationship is much better, because I go to a healer, and she's in the room, and I've discovered and learned a lot more about her.
That's amazing.
It is, and
is it like a Reiki? I don't know how to pronounce it in English.
He does Reiki,
but
he does other.
that's
He's an incredibly gifted healer.
Oh, wow.
And but one-on-one is very expensive, but I did do it for a while, and it was very fruitful. Wow. But it's incredible, to be in a room with him, and he says, your mom's standing over there, and your dad's right over here.
Wow, I got goosebumps right now. That's so cool.
And he said, your dad is very quiet. He doesn't say a lot, but when he talks, it's very meaningful.
Wow.
That's my dad.
Wow.
That is my dad,
Yeah.
And your mom's standing over there, and she's crying. And she's just so sorry for, so much about, your history.
Happened,
yeah. And she's very proud of me.
Yeah.
And, he
That's
just
beautiful.
he just captured the two of them where I had no doubt that,
it was authentic.
It was authentic, yeah.
And do you think, like, did you ever get to use that for inspiration for your work in a way?
Somehow it got
Maybe
in, not directly, but my belief in the spiritual world, spirit world, and that death is not the end, and that I'm sure plays a part in my work because, not only does it take pressure off thinking that your time here is so limited, because it is limited,
We're all here having the human experience, as they call it.
Absolutely, and this is not your first life. Your life is an accumulation of other lives. And he told me that, I was once a queen in pre-Egypt time in that area. And that that this soul wanted to thank me because in this lifetime I have just conquered so much of the past that was haunting and plaguing myself, and all the way back to this queen in Egypt, and it's mind-blowing, really, and
that's so fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating. He's a very gifted man, and I'm so grateful, to have experienced his gift because it's helped me tremendously.
I can see that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And do you think, with your recent series, the DNA series and the neurons, do you think that maybe somehow that was like a subconscious, artistic way for you to put that out into the recent series that you're doing, maybe? Because you might think of like spiritual, like DNA, the human body,
and sort of connected to past lives.
Kind of like that. Yeah. Because that's where it stores all the information. So
that's right.
It's very interesting. That's why I love talking to you, because things click, especially with your work.
I would, so cool. Oh man, I will keep that in my mind
because I'm like that the same way. Like things will happen, and then subconsciously it will go into my work, and then like sometimes days, weeks, years later, I'll look at it again. I'm like, oh my gosh, this totally makes sense. I just trusted the process, painted it organically, didn't think too much of it.
Yes.
And thought it didn't mean anything. It was like, maybe superficial. But now it makes so much sense, and like how everything's connected,
And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's like the best feeling
when
you can understand it. Like when the universe sends you like a message and you get it.
And it's just, you just need a little time and space, and then to look back at it.
I wouldn't be surprised if our past life we were like friends somewhere, like in a big city.
Hey, you never know. Those souls are slippery creatures.
Yeah, because you have such a young spirit. Like you're even like younger than I am. Like for example, we're gonna have this podcast on audio. I'm sure people are gonna think you're younger than me, just by the way you are, the way you talk, because you're just like full of life.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Oh, mwah.
To you. Thank you. But, do you want to go back so we can go back to this photograph that you brought and talk a little bit more about it?
Sure. Well, the thing about this photograph, as I was saying earlier, was the fact that, to describe my work, words cannot capture the strength of another medium. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it.
So the imagery, the shape, the presence of an artwork, words and descriptions, that's for another professional.
Yeah.
There are people that do that, and that's their way to express their talent. But as artists, it's all about like, what have I created, and is it does it stand on its own, and right now the thing I'm doing differently, which this was the beginning of, is that I can play with the shape. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to fit into a rectangle.
Yeah, and I love exactly. I was gonna say how it's like asymmetrical right
Yes.
here with the little cloth sticking out.
Yeah.
That's so. It's such
It's
a cute
like-
little detail.
Anything goes,
Yeah,
right?
but it makes a huge difference with like a regular rectangle shape, as you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it becomes like more organic,
Yeah.
even though it's a geometric
Yeah.
motif. You know.
I'll make sure to include this picture in the Instagram and the video so people can,
Cool.
as they're listening right now, they
Yes.
can visually see this. and
Yeah.
Be a part of the experience. I mean, there's no way like you
Super.
could describe that to me that we'll be able to fully grasp. But it does make sense what you're saying. Sometimes you have to be in front of the art to fully interact with it.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, so now I see we have a new work,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a sister to the previous work you had here.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, I want to just feel free enough to, stick my thumb in the image and like just do something unexpected that,
Yeah.
you might not even notice it. I
Yeah.
like that subtlety, but what is that doing there? That doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Oh, but it does, so, yeah, it's just like a little joke or, I like the fact that it's there.
I love it too.
Yeah.
And I love the detail of the cloth. Like, I don't know what you call that in English, thing that hangs from the structure to prevent any debris
Yes.
falling. I love how it's like folded.
Yes.
Because it kind of reminds me like, you have something so structured and factory-like, but then you have this cloth that kind of reminds me of like skin and like a spirit flying,
Yes.
So that's the thing I love about your work. It's so many, I mean, you could stand there. All you need is a bench. That's all you need. You need a bench and just fully, soak it in and observe it because it's full of details. Kind of like a hidden treasure hunt,
Uh-huh.
Where you
Yes,
get
I
to
love
grasp
that.
to it and relate to it in different ways. You know,
Yes.
like, for example, this, I feel like if people experience death, they can kind of understand this. Like, maybe an ordinary person would see like a skin or, like when skin wrinkles. But see, I see kind of like a spirit flowing or like going from like human form to the spirit world,
Yes, because, it's actually, when you say spirit world,
Yeah.
you're talking about the wind.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the energy.
Yeah.
There's energy there where this rigidness,
Mhm.
it's a structure and it won't bend to
Yeah.
organic
I love
forces. But you brought that up, and now
Mhm.
this is so rigid to me. I mean, it's still dealing with the lines. I
Yeah.
mean, and I
I
love
love
all
it.
the lines, but
It's like an insertion. Is that how you say it in English?
insert.
Yeah, an
Yeah,
insert.
yeah.
It's very nice.
So, and it's not even the same color. It's
Mhm.
it's a little wacky.
Yeah, not wacky at all. It's so fascinating. And can you tell us a little bit about how did you go from like taking photographs, and you mentioned you have a printer in your house. How did you go from like taking pictures, photographing them, to turning them into like beautiful collages? Was it like you kind of had them in the table all at once, and you were kind of putting them on top of it? Like, how was that?
Well, I know you've walked down the hallway to where. So there are a series of four.
Okay.
Those are collages
Okay.
also. So I started the collages way back,
Mhm.
where I was mirroring four of the same
Oh,
image.
okay.
So that created like this world that. So that's where the collage began. But then, of course, it evolved
Yes.
because my work's always evolving, and this is where it is right now. So it's got to keep me tickled and entertained
Yeah.
and excited, and that's how I know I'm on the right track.
I love that.
Thank you.
And I love that you're not afraid to take risks, because a lot of people kind of like, maybe all artists, I believe, we have a little bit of perfectionism, so we try to make it
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
But I love that you take chances, like you don't put just, the collages of your picture, you insert them onto each other and not just put it flat.
Yeah.
That I think that's very cool. And it's like thinking outside the box in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mindy, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It's been a pleasure. Before we go, would you mind telling us your Instagram?
My Instagram is Mindy.Gluck,
Okay.
small case,
Okay.
Mindy.Gluck.
Okay.
And my website on Wix is www.mgluck-art.com.
Okay, perfect. And if somebody wants to buy a piece of work, they can just go to your reach out on your website or Instagram. That would be okay.
Yes.
And are you open to commissions? Like if somebody wants, let's say, like you photograph their building or a special monumental place that means something to them. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. I would love that challenge.
Perfect.
Because it would just take me
It goes
to
all the
another
way
place.
back. It's like a full circle in a way. It goes all the way back. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. You've been an amazing guest.
Thank you. It was
So much fun
wonderful
talking to you. And I
have
really
this
appreciate it.
happen.
And I can't wait for us to catch up again, maybe later this year or
Okay.
even earlier. And then we see
Hopefully
where.
I'll have a lot of new
Absolutely,
work.
have the new series done by then. We
Yes.
can talk about that. Thank you
All
again for
right.
bringing your art and sharing your art with us
My
here today.
pleasure. Thank you.
Till next
Tarik.
time. Bye,
All
Mindy.
right.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Tarik Talk. Follow Tarik Talk on all social media channels and check out the video interviews online.